That, and then for the roof, I want it to be a light value, but just for interest's sake, and because I'm imagining it's catching more of the sun, I'm going to go a little bit more to the yellow, or pardon me, the orange, with a little bit more of the complement mixed in. And I'll just test it. You can see that that's definitely more towards the orange side. I don't want it too much that way, but I want a nice light value. And one thing I'm going to try and do with this roof, so that's a little bit dark, I'm going to try and, you know, create a little bit of texture. So I'm going to have some, yeah, like, I don't know if you can see that too well, but that's really nice dry brush. So it gives me some strokes, so I don't want to lose all of that. And I'll go right up to there. And I'll add some of that. And I'm going to just take some water and just tone down a little bit of that. So I think I'll just leave that for now. And the last thing, this is a distant row of trees, and they are way in the background. And so two characteristics of trees that are way in the background is, one, they're a lighter value. So for me, that means more water. And secondly, they are more neutralized. So I'm going to try and do both of that, get a light, fairly wet wash with a little bit more of the complement in it. And I want this to be very light. So in fact, what I'm going to do, this is really helpful, especially with value work. I'll test it. And that's pretty close. A little more water. And we'll just add this here. And need a little more paint than that. Yeah. What I'm going to do now, and it'll just take a second, I'm going to dry this off totally and add the finishing touches. And now I want to come in and add my darkest darks. So there's some dioxazine purple, some ultramarine blue, and I'm going to come in and add some ultramarine or cadmium orange. So I have a real dark value there, very dark. And I want to do a couple of things. One, I want to outline this window. I want to have a little bit up here. But now I'm not covering the entire part up there. In fact, what I think I'll do is just add a little bit of detail there. I don't know if that helps or not. The other thing I want, though, is to add this door here. So add a door there, and I also want a shadow under the roof. Now if I have the thatch shadows that strong, it's probably going to be something similar in here. And I've decided these little attempts at board work here don't work. So I'm just taking pure water and just mushing this around a little bit. And any finishing touches, I'm going to put a fence post here. And you know what, that's about that. And just one thing, I'll take my light value, I'm going to take something that's a little bit darker than that for a little bit of detail. You know, this might be made of boards or something like that, and there may be boards or shingles up there, whatever, something maybe there. Anyway, so I'm just going to leave that. Well, I can never just leave it. But I'm going to try. Okay, just pure water. That's too far out there. Okay, so that's finished. So now I look at this. Was I successful? Is my darkest dark in this area? Now this door is very dark, but I'm going to kind of look at that as part of this. In fact, this is interesting. Would this painting be better? Because now that is the darkest dark. So that's taking the eye away from my center of interest. And you know, if I'm being true to what I said, that's an important point. This is now my darkest dark, and it's competing with my center of interest. So this is one of those impromptu moments that we can hopefully turn into a learning experience. And that shadow, I think, also is a little bit too dark. So just by taking water and mopping it up, it's less dark, it's less value. So to me, very successful. Now on this next one, I'm going to try the same thing, except my strongest value is going to be back here. So I'm going to start in the same way, but now I want this is going to end up just as a mid value. But I'll do it the same way. I'll take a light wash of blue violet and just go over everything, windows included. And I'm going to run this right into the foreground. And I'm probably going to keep the foreground the same as it really is a light value. Okay, and I'm going to come in for just for variety's sake. I'm going to add some of my complement to this blue violet. And I'm doing this again, even though it's a mid value. I mean, really, it still reads as a mid value, but there's a little bit of variety in there. For now, that section is finished. I may come and do a little something with the windows. I'm going to have that as it's really, ultimately I'd like that to be a mid value, kind of a lighter, but a mid value. The sides of the building I still want to be very light. So I'm going to take my blue violet with lots of water, and I'll start with a light wash of that. I'm thinking it might be, see, that's virtually the same value, so I'm just taking water, stretching it out. And taking care to have it sitting in grass, so have it down like that. And I just want a little bit of variety in there again. So I'm going to take a little bit of the, adding some of the cat orange, but more of the cat orange, just so I get a little bit of that feel in there. And now I'm going to move over here. I don't want to do the roof because I don't want it to touch the trees and run. So I'm going to now go to the trees, and they are going to now be my darkest value. So I take my blue violet. I'm taking my blue violet, but just to start off with, just in a medium value, or a light, no, say really almost a medium value. Come down here. And now I want to use the side of my brush like I demonstrated earlier and get some tree shapes. Now that's really a light value, and I'm using that as my initial wash so that I can come in and throw in some of the darker values. And because that lighter wash is wet, so I'm going to take a light value of the same mixture and just go over all that, or most of it, and now it starts to flow together. I'm going to hit it with everything. Yeah, I think that value works. The only thing, I'm left with that same problem. So I'll come in here, oops, and add more. I don't want to turn it too orange. I want it to still be in the blue value range, but neutralized. And I'll just put that in there to kind of do that. distant line of trees back there. I don't know that I want to have this sort of as a vignette or silhouetted there. I definitely want that white, but this one I don't know that I want to keep it. So I'm going to just start off with a very light wash of some of the mixtures there. And just actually bring in a hint of the orange. Just pure water here. Okay. And then I do want to come in still and have a darker value on the door, but remembering this is my center of interest, so I don't want a really dark door to attract the eye too much. And I'll still put that shadow under there. Even though I want to keep this as a mid value, I want it to be a little more interesting, and I think this time I'll have dark windows. A little bit of shadow up there. And then just as I run out of paint, so it's a good job. And I'm going to put, because I'm just focusing on this as my center of interest, actually what I'm going to do, see if it shows, I want to add a couple of pine trees. Which is really just an excuse to let me put a dark right up against the building. Yeah, and I want to take not quite as dark, but I just want a little bit of detail on that side of the building, and even water it down a bit more just to punch up those shadows there. And now just pure water to soften that there. Okay, so I'm going to call that a day after I do this. Now if I look at these, it's definitely a different feeling in both of them. Here I think definitely I go to this section where my greatest value is, my greatest contrast. I go there. Up here I definitely go to this section. Oh, I forgot one thing. I forgot to do the roof. So I need a light value. Okay, thank you very much and hope to see you next time.
Sensation.